we are going to see how to customize the audio button widget from the customtkinter library. Precisely, we are going to see the properties that will allow us to change or customize its appearance and how it affects it. So first of all, we have here two audio buttons because in general we have multiple or more than one audio button linked together in order to select or make a choice. So this we are using two audio buttons so to see the difference between a checked audio button and a not checked one. We will see later one of the properties that will allow us to see clearly the difference. Actually, we are seeing it right now. This is a checked audio button. This is a not checked. We can see here the difference. If I have only one audio button, I will not be able to uncheck it. The appearance will be fixed or false to this state. This is why we are adding a second audio button. So this way we can check and uncheck or select and unselect our audio button. The first property, the text. This is not the way we set the property. Actually, we can call configure, or while we create the audio button, we set text equal and we give it the value. Here, for example, can write audio button. By the way, our two audio buttons will have the same properties. For example, here same text. This is not the actual case or the usual case. The usual case for each audio button, of course, you give it its text corresponding usually to its value. The font, we can change the font of our audio button. For example, I'm going to set it to Arial or Arial. So the font changed. Now I can change the size 18. You can see looks bigger. Normal, we can set also the font to bold. So generally we define at the same time the family font, the size and the weight. However, whether the button will change its color when he over it or when we hover over it. So the value is not 1, the value is either true or false. We are setting it here because we are using this tool that belongs to the library that I'm working on. So for the values, since it is a JSON text or JSON property, we cannot set it to true or false. So I'm giving it the value 1 for true and 0 for false. So 1 is true. Now if I set it to 0, which means false, if I hover over my audio button, you can see the color doesn't change. We set it back to 1 and now we can see the hover. So 1 corresponds to true. The high, now it's equal to 22. If I set it to, let's say 50, you can see here, we can't clearly see the high, but if I change the PG color, another property of the audio button, I'm going to set it to orange and preview the widget. Now the width, it's clear. We can see change also the height of our audio button. So previously we changed the height and now we are going to change the width. So the width changed. Here the height. You can see the height changed. I set it back to 50. Now the width, the 220. It's clear now. The BG color, the preferred value or the usual value is transparent. Radio button width, the width of this button. These are the default values we are working with. So the default is 22. So I'm going to try to set it to 10 and preview. You can see it looks not really great. So if I set it to 30 now, you can see this oval or ellipse shape. So I'm going to change the same thing, the height. I'm going to give it the same value. You can see again, the radio buttons will have the same property. The states, normal, I can work with it. Disabled, I will not be able to check or uncheck. So the functionality also changes, but here we are talking about the appearance. The appearance usually change because of the text when the button is disabled can also be set. For example, here I can set the text color disabled to red. You can see here, because our state is red, it didn't change because I didn't write the right property. I said disabled with an L and not with the D, so I'm setting to back to D. Now you can see that our button is disabled and its appearance changed. Going to set it back to normal, so we can change the state and the text color when the state is disabled. Now the other properties, we have the corner radius. So we have this circle look button or radio button. This is the default value 1000. I'm going to set it to see nothing. So these are the default value of the blue theme in the dark mode. Okay, because there are 3 default themes. We are working with the blue theme of the in dark mode. If I set it to 20, or we are seeing the dark mode of blue theme. So you can see here the corner radius is not changing. So if I set it to 5 now, you can see now the radio button is a square and not a circle. Now the border width checked and the border width unchecked. So the border width when the button is checked, this border, the big border when it's checked, and the smaller one when it's unchecked. So if I set it to border when checked to 10, click on preview, you can see the border increase. So now when this one is checked, the border is increased. Now if I set here the border to 5, click on preview, you can see also here the border increased. So when the button is unchecked, we can set its border, and we can set also its border when it's checked, because in customtkinter the check or the uncheck value is represented by the border width of the button. So here, when the border when it's checked is 10, and when it's unchecked, it's equal to 5. The FG color, let's say I'm going to set it to blue. We can define 2 values or 1 value. 2 values mean that the first one is for light theme or light mode, second one is for dark mode. So since the system is in dark mode and we didn't define a dark mode while creating the interface, so it will take the properties of dark mode. So this is the FG color. You can see here when the button is unchecked, it doesn't take the FG color, but when it is checked, it took the color we just set it for it. So the border color now. So previously we talked about the border width. Now the border color, if I set it to red and click preview, you can see this is the color when the button is unchecked. So the FG color is the color of the border of the radio button, or of the button of the radio button when it is checked. The border color is the color of the border of the button of the radio button when it is unchecked. So this is the color of the checked, the FG color. The border color is the color of the unchecked. The hover color, we are hovering here. So if I give it a clear value, for example, I will set it to white, and I will hover. My button or the button will, both borders are white now when I hover over them, but the actual color will not change unless we hover over the other button. Text color, of course, we can change the color of the text. Let's say black. Now you can see here the text color change. And the text color disabled, when the button is disabled, we've already seen that the text became red when we changed the state to disabled. I think these are most of the properties, or almost all the properties, that we can use to change the appearance of the audio button of the customtkinter library. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.